It's time for the Douglas Allen Frazier Show, and this is Douglas Allen Frazier with you today, where we are going to take a look at part 2 on what we can do to make a difference in the racial divide that we see is in this nation today. Stand by and listen and pay attention, because I believe this will make a difference in your life and add some value to the current situation as we find it today. You know, it's interesting, all of the different looks and ideas, comments, statistics that come out with all of the different situations that we find. And as somebody has said, when it comes to working with statistics, the numbers don't lie, but they can definitely be adjusted to try to make your point. I was listening yesterday to a young pastor, a black pastor from Ohio. I'm not going to mention his name. I don't think that that's necessary. I'm just going to kind of play off of some of his comments, because he was sharing his viewpoint, just as I shared some of my viewpoint yesterday. But one of the things that caught my attention as I listened to a very good explanation and a heartfelt explanation and direction that he was trying to take people, and I agreed with probably most of his points. I could find fault with none of them. They were coming from his opinion of his life experience and what others have experienced from him, and how he is trying to direct his congregation. One of the things that he talked about was he was coming from a black man talking to a white audience. And he highlighted, I have a lot of white friends. A lot of white friends have been a big influence in my life. And like I said yesterday, I have tried to not identify my friends by their color, but sometimes you've got to. And I believe this is one of these times that we just need to say, people of color, wherever they are, sometimes you just have to give a background. Okay, if I say I have a friend in India, he's an Indian friend. Okay, he's from India. He also has dark skin. Some of them much blacker than a lot of black people here in America. But anyway, that's a whole different litany of ideas. We take people for who they are, regardless of what their skin color is, what their ethnicity is, when as a Christian, these are my brothers and sisters, and we're all working together to see that the kingdom of God is spread to the nations, that we are discipling the nations. That is the command of Jesus for Christians. Now, let's move into this. If you're not a Christian and you're going to be listening to this, you're going to hear a lot of information that's going to go back and forth from a Christian perspective. And I'll just put this in the beginning. The Christian perspective when it comes to all people is to love them just as you would love yourself. To love them just as God would love them. Now, let's move forward. The young pastor, one of the things he talked about, he said, if me as a white person is going to be having a dialogue of some sort with, let's say, some of my black friends, don't discuss, he said, the abortion issue and the black on black crime in the Afro-American communities. He said, don't talk about those things. And I sat there and I said, that's a challenge. It's already pointed out to the Black Lives Matter people. If Black Lives matter so much in your society and what you are trying to put across in the black community, then why isn't the abortion issue and the killing that goes on black? I'll put it this way. I was in a bit of tears as one of my friends, I have to identify her as one of my black sisters here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, sent out a picture of how her heart was breaking because it was the picture of a little boy, a little black boy, I'm guessing no more than 6 or 7 years old, laying in a casket because he had been shot and killed. Not by a white policeman, not by a black policeman, but this was a crime of a drive-by shooting that took this young boy's life. Now, I didn't see anything in the news dealing with this. That, to me, is an issue that can only be solved by the dialogue that takes place, even the protesting, if you will, that would take place in the black community. That they would rise up and say, no more are we going to be shooting our own, killing our own, whatever it is. But this black pastor said, we don't want to talk about that. He said, what I want you to talk about is the killing or the shooting of unarmed black people. In other words, I want you white people to be talking about that issue and that issue alone. Now, I did a little research. And this was for the year 2015. The number of unarmed black people, men, women, and I'll just say young people, that were killed was around, I believe, 110, maybe 115. Okay, right in there. That's 1 year. That was the statistics. Unarmed black people killed 2015. You might want to Google it up. The place that I looked, I thought was really interesting because they did this. They gave the numbers, and then they showed a picture of each of those that had been killed. Not only did they show the picture where you could see, yes, this is a real person, and their life matters. Their life in society matters. All of the things that they need for their life, for their family's life, for an extended life is important. And yet they lost their life. Now, here's a point I want to make. As I went through and looked at each individual, I didn't go to the last one. I got to about, I think, number 75. And then we had an electrical storm here at the house. All the lights went off. And anyway, we were a little bit disrupted. But I got to about number 75. And as I read the statistics, they went through and gave exactly, kind of a testimony or a critique of what happened. Some of them were shot. Often the shooting took place because there was a resistance of the person that was shot after being stopped or fleeing the scene or reaching in, I believe it was either 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 cases where the person that was shot was pretending to reach for a weapon. In one case, they didn't have a weapon, but they gave a move that indicated they were going to be reaching for a weapon. A number of the cases, the people that were killed were pointing what they said to be toy guns, toy pistols. There was a young black boy, I believe, that was killed this was on the news a while back. A young boy was killed in a park pointing a toy pistol. Go into a Walmart store, go into the sporting goods area, and you can see, I can't exactly call them a toy pistol because they will shoot a BB or a pellet, okay, which can inflict some damage. It won't kill you, but it can very much hurt you. It could put an eye out, something like that, okay? I have one myself that I use for target practice. It's with a CO2 cartridge, and it looks like a 9mm pistol. I mean, the color, the feel, everything. And if I was to point that at a person or a policeman is going to respond in kind because that's how they are taught. My wife and I have taken a concealed weapons permit class. We were taught by our instructor, I have to identify him, a black man who works for several federal agencies and also other security agencies here in the United States. We asked the question as a class, if somebody is coming against us or we feel that we are going to be threatened or we are being threatened, how should we respond? Should we shoot like for the leg or for the arm? He said, shoot for the middle, what they call the center mass. That's where your heart and lungs are. And he said, give them a warning. Don't tell them I'm going to shoot you. Tell them do not come any further. Now, I would believe that that is a part of some of the police training also. I have to believe that. I have several friends that are police officers, and I can just about guarantee that that is how they have been instructed and how they instruct. They give directions and orders first. If the directions and orders are not carried out, then they are going to respond accordingly. Now, of those 100 and so that were killed that were unarmed, up to the number 75, I could find only about 6 to 10 that had been shot with a weapon, in other words, a pistol. There were others that succumbed and died because they had been tased, okay? A taser is an electrical shocker that is supposed to take you down and keep you and incapacitate you for a certain period of time. Some of those, a couple of them anyway, died on the spot from being tased. A couple of others were taken to the hospital and died in the hospital. Numerous other indications of people that were unarmed and were killed. One was a young boy that was run over by a police car that was on a chase after somebody. There were several that were people in automobiles that were in accidents with police cars. So what I'm trying to point out is let's, as a people, look at the evidence, look at the circumstances that are involved when we begin rattling off this litany of unarmed black people being killed by the police. Because obviously, at least what I saw, they were not all targeted and shot just at random. Now, I have to point this out. For many years, I lived in Japan, in the military and on business. And I'm familiar that in Japanese society, the only people that have guns are two sets of people: the police and the criminals. In this case, it's the Japanese mafia they call the Yakuza. In fact, this is a true statement. A friend of mine and I were in a Japanese city, and there was a festival going on, and we saw who we knew from our experience were some of the young Yakuza that were setting up to what they do is they proclaim protection. You pay us so much money, we'll protect your site from any untoward activities, okay? Now, we talked to those young guys for a little bit. It didn't bother us. They didn't try to hurt us or chase us away or anything. All of a sudden, we noticed a Rolls Royce drive up, and it was coming towards where we were. And there was an older guy got out, and with him was a very young, attractive young Japanese girl, obviously a lot younger than this guy. And he came over to us, directly over to us, and said, "Could you get us some guns?" My friend and I, we just got to, no, we're not going to do this. And then my friend, who is half Japanese and half white, okay, I have to identify him that way so you understand. And he said, "What do you need guns for? You got clubs and knives." And I said, "Steve, let's not even carry this conversation any farther." So we just bid our adieu and left. But in Japanese society, the police and the mafia are the criminals. And the police have an idea of where they are. And sometimes in Japan, they just let the mafia, if there's going to be a fight, they just let them fight it out and they'll stand off to the side. Now, did I feel threatened as a foreigner living in that country, knowing that I couldn't even carry a weapon and the police had weapons? No. If somebody got shot, it was because they did the best they could to see that the situation was controlled. It didn't happen very often. But let me add one other thing. Japanese police also play judo. I'm trying to put in some elements of understanding. The Japanese police play judo. When I was younger, I was stationed in Japan in the military. I also played judo. I earned a black belt. And we would work out with the Japanese police forces ever so once in a while. Our judo was a sport judo. Their judo was a self-defense judo. And let me explain it this way. In sport judo, you do not go and try to hurt someone intentionally. In police judo, they use it as a form of protection for themselves and also taking down whoever they need to take down, and to make sure when they hit the ground, they're not going to like it and they're not going to get back up again. Not that they're going to die, but they're going to feel like they die. They are going to hurt a lot. I'll put it that way. I can see that this is going to have to be extended out, but I want you to get the understanding that if we, as a white person, are talking to a black person, there has to be a willingness on both sides to go and see what are the issues involved and how do we resolve them without going beyond the issue itself of what took place. I'll just put it this way. I would ask that if you're in a car and you think it's really cool to be videotaping somebody being stopped, just like this guy in Minnesota, we don't have all the information. It went viral. It started all sorts of problems from the White House on down. That's my final comment for this stage. But we are going to continue this discussion because I believe it's important enough. And as I prayed last night, I said, Lord, show me what you want me to speak on and how to speak on it. And it was simply this reply: the truth must be heard and dealt with on both sides. So tell the truth and let people understand that they have a responsibility for walking in the truth and not in the darkness. Because it is the darkness, I'll just put it this way, that Satan, the devil himself, is a divider and a liar. And we need to see the light of Jesus, the love of God, the power of God in our lives, and the truth being displayed. This is Douglas Allen Frazier signing out for this segment.